Thanks, Louis. We have club patron and life member Barry Maranta and Tom Vievers, who, before Casper overtook you, Tommy, you had the most tests. What did you have, 20? 21 tests? 21 tests in, yes, but get that 21 out, Tom. Barry, you sort of came backwards and forwards when Lou kept retiring. You went up to first grade. Yeah, it's on. You went up to first grade. It must have been quite a confusing time deciding whether you were in, out, or because you went from there down to Clem's teams the whole time, didn't you?
The other way around, actually.
Oh, right.
I went from Clem's side up to replace Lou whenever he played Shield cricket. It wasn't easy to get out of Clem's side, and he had to get special dispensation. But it was only because Lou was playing for the Shield that Clem allowed me to go up from C grade, and we had to make my way back down again after Lou came back. So.
And when you went from when Lou came back, you went back to C's. You didn't go to seconds.
No, then Robson sort of exerted himself a bit more vigorously, so I then went back to seconds and played with him and Big Davey Taylor and Trevor Powell and all those sort of people. So then I sort of semi-escaped the Clem Jones sort of blanket of control, and generally tried to play with Clem's team on the Sundays.
Okay.
Because it wasn't just a Saturday university, it was Sunday. In Clem's mind, whatever game it was important.
He was and I mean everyone knows it, but he was a very significant figure, not only the club, but obviously as Lord Mayor, and seemed to run the place with a fairly bit of an iron fist.
He's probably, and everyone would agree here that knows him, probably the most extraordinary human being that you could meet. He was amazingly competitive. Every game had to be won. He, being the Lord Mayor of Brisbane, he exerted so much influence over the C-grade captains of the other teams that they cowered under him, and only Clem could get because we played on grounds where there weren't covered wickets. Clem would have us all at 9 o'clock in the morning, if it had been raining overnight, to be out there in our creams, and we'd have to mop up, and the back of the Lord Mayor's car had all the squeegees and the rags, and you'd see 10 other university cricketers all covered in black soil by the time we went out to play, but that meant we'd get an outright. All the other teams didn't play, so we won 13 premierships on the trot or something. So.
Yeah.
Oh, could I come in there, because I didn't play much with Clem except an occasional charity game. And through you, Andrew, I must ask Barry, did you keep for Clem in a testimonial day at the university? Were you playing in that game?
Yes. That was
well, I must tell you, ladies and gentlemen, something about that, because that was one day I didn't play in Clem's side. The university put on a testimonial for him, not a money testimonial, by the way, at St Lucia. And he'd managed to talk Alan Davidson from New South Wales to come up, the opposing captain. And it was quite a wonderful day, by the way, lovely lunch and everything like that. But as Barry just said, to be in Clem's side was rather a privilege as far as Clem was concerned. Anyway, they batted first and made something like 140 or 150. And you might remember, and there'd be a number of people here tonight who probably participated in that game. And anyway, and Dave O slammed us around a bit. Anyway, it was a lovely lunch. Just after lunch, Clem comes up to me and says, Tommy, you're opening. And I said, well, I'm not really an opening batsman, you know, Clem. He said, well, you're opening with me, I'm opening as well. So I thought, well, this is pretty interesting. And he said, you know, we're going to win this game. And Barry's just hit the nail on the head. A deadly serious game. So as we're walking out onto the number 1 oval, Clem comes over to me and says, now listen, I'll take Davo, by the way, you don't have to worry about him. And I thought, this is fairly interesting. He said, I've worked out, and Clem had some wonderful theories about the game, some very, very good, by the way, and this one up to a point was pretty valid. Yeah. He said, the way to play Davo is this, because he was a great Australian left-arm fast bowler at this stage, and he got a tremendous number of wickets caught behind and by Wally Groud, or caught in the slips by Stimpson and the other good slip fielders Australia had at that time. But Clem's theory was you had to play back to him, because he had this ball that ran away to the slips. He said if you played back, it gave you plenty of time to see if the ball was going to run away. I said, well, that sounds pretty good, Clem. So anyway, out we go. Davo's bowling off about 5 or 6 paces, still fairly sharp. Clem's played back. First ball, guess what happened? He's got hit right in front, about halfway up the shin. Well, it's Clem's testimonial today, so there's no LBWs given out, especially against the star of the day. And Davo says to me, gee, this is going to be pretty interesting. So I thought, well, I better get into this act too. I said to Davo, I said, Davo, you're going to be in trouble here, mate. He's got you worked out. Very next ball, the same thing happens. Nothing too much is said. So I'm batting down the other end. So there's no runs scored. I'm batting down the other end. And I was lucky to get a couple of shots away. In fact, Tommy Corcoran, the late Tom Corcoran, was the bowler on the other side. And as a few remember. So anyway, we got a few, about 7 or 8. Next second over, up she comes again. In the meanwhile, there's a conference. And Davo says, Clem says, well, things are working pretty well, you know. I reckon we're going to get these fellas. Same thing happened again. Okay, not out, not out. Anyway, I took a bit of a swipe and got caught behind by, was it you, Barry?
Oh, I think I was in.
But Tommy Corcoran was the bowler, I don't know. Oh, it might have been Brian O'Callaghan. Yeah. Was it? Lou. Oh, Lou, you were playing. Oh.
Well, you would have been stumped.
You were playing against Clem. Anyway, I'm out. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I dared not look at Clem because I knew what was going to happen later on, and it did. He walked up to me, you know, later on, and Clem he did get out, I think. He might have been run out, I think. He walked up to me later on, and boy, didn't he give it to me. What in the hell are you doing getting out like that? And he didn't speak to me for ages.
Tell me this about Clem. He was fairly autocratic sort of fellow, wasn't he? And he would have had fallings out, but he didn't hold a grudge at all. He sort of...
Never held a grudge. I remember one year at the Gab when I was secretary and Clem was the curator, of course. And I was speaking with Bob Mile and Dickie Gricedown, and then I'd forgotten this. The university wicket used to be a magnificent pitch. In fact, the curator was a fellow called Jack Farquhar, a very famous curator. And some of the older players would remember him. He used to prepare the Gabba sometimes with a scythe. It was a beautiful batting wicket, the Brisbane Cricket Ground was in those days. Unfortunately, he never conveyed any of that expertise to Clem, because Clem ran into all sorts of trouble with the preparation of the wicket. He'd be over there, Andrew, ladies and gentlemen, in the morning at 7:30. Lou tells the story that he was out there at 10 o'clock one night. Is that funny, Lou?
Yeah, he was out there one night and he called for drinks. But I was watching those blokes on TV. They were jumping up and down the Indian or the New Zealand Indian game, and we had them drinking out on the pitch. And that was fairly common with Clem. You know, he just called to the Cricketers Club and he wanted a carton of. He used to have toolies actually. They sent out a dozen toolies. And then at the same time he'd say, "Look, ring the Courier Mail and tell them the Lord Mayor's out here preparing the wicket. It'll be on the front page." So I bought the paper I rang the Courier Mail, bought the paper the next morning. Yeah, Clem's on the front page.
Anyway, never held a grudge, but we were in the bar at the old members' bar there one day after a game, and Clem was under a fair bit of pressure because of the preparation of the pitch. And there was a big rumour, or more than a rumour, there was a big case to get him removed from the Australian Cricket Board. Alan Pettigrew wanted to get on. So I happened to be saying to Clem in the bar, I said, "Clem, look, I think you've really got to give this away. You're the Lord Mayor of the city. And things don't seem to be going pretty well, and I think you're going to lose your spot on the Australian Cricket Board," which probably would have hurt him more than being knocked out of being Lord Mayor. Well, he didn't like it at all. He turned to me and said, "Now listen, you look after your job, Tommy, and I'll look after mine." But next day, over there, 7:30 in the morning, the Lord Mayor's car would be out on the concrete pavement. Clem walked into the office. Nothing had happened. Never held a grudge, and that was like Clem. And I think in the end, and he was a difficult bloke, as Barry just said, to understand, I realised that he didn't mind people sort of really being aggressive and saying things to him. And a lot of people didn't do that, but he